Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about ready to start, so I'm going to start to ask persons if they can please take their seats. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask that you rise for the arrival of His Excellency, Governor Ajamu Bailey. We will now remain standing as we play the St. Martin song.
Where over the world, say where, you find an island there, so lovely small, with nations free, with people French and Dutch, though talking English much, as the St. Martin in the sea. Oh, sweet St. Martin's land, so bright by beach and strand, with sailors on the sea and harbors free, where the chains of mountains green variously in sunlight sheen. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice. Oh, I love that paradise, nature's beauty fairly nice.
Thank you. You may now be seated. His Excellency, Governor Ajamu Bailey, President of Parliament, MP Sarah Westcott Williams, Minister Richinel Brugh, Minister Patrice Gums, Minister Melissa Gums, Toyin Yaga, Country Manager for the St. Martin Trust Fund portfolio in St. Martin, Mr. Jean-Jacques Verdeau, Procurement Manager, Practice Manager for Procurement for Latin America and the Caribbean region, and Mr. Santiago Ibrahim, Procurement Head of the NRPB. Ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, good evening, and thank you so much for being here tonight. I know that many of you had a long, full day, and the fact that you've taken the time to come out this evening to learn and to ask questions and to engage really means a lot. It tells us that you care about the processes and that you want to be a part of what's going on, and we really appreciate your presence. Tonight's session is focused on procurement, what guides it, how it works, and how local businesses and professionals such as yourselves can engage. We'll hear from both the NRPB team and our colleagues from the World Bank. Tonight, you'll learn more about the legal framework of the Trust Fund, strategies for increasing your competitiveness, and how to use our new Bonfire e-Procurement platform. And of course, we'll wrap up with an open forum for your questions, comments, and feedback. This is an information session, but it's also a conversation. So please do engage and bring your questions. All we ask is that we keep this dialogue respectful and productive so we can make the most of our time together. With that, I now invite Mr. Claret Connor, Director of the NRPB, to give some opening remarks. Mr. Connor?
Good evening, everyone. I would like to recognize the protocol that has been established and welcome every one of you who are sitting here this evening in this hall, and also those who are online, because we do have that facility set up for tonight. Thank you for being here, because tonight is the 6th procurement market engagement that we've undertaken since the trust fund has been established. You would remember in 2019 in the Bel Air Community Center under the IRC at the time, the first engagement occurred. Following that, in 2019, that was 2018 and 2019, we also had engagement at the Simpson Bay Resort and also at NIPA. The NRPB participated in 2 of the SMILE events, which is the St. Martin Innovations Initiative and Industry Link-Up event in 2022 and 2023. Unfortunately, in 2024, we tried organizing another engagement. However, due to a small response from the community, that event was postponed, and now we're here tonight again for the 6th engagement with the community. The NRPB is an autonomous institution established by law on St. Martin. We are charged with the implementation of the Trust Fund program. In addition to managing the implementation of the Trust Fund projects, we manage relationships. We manage the relationship between the World Bank and the Trust Fund, which is the Trust Fund custodian on St. Martin. We manage the government of the Netherlands, the relationship with the government of the Netherlands, which is the single donor of this trust fund. We also manage the relationships of the government of St. Martin on behalf of the government of St. Martin, on behalf of the people of St. Martin. This relationship is the one that we cherish the most, because this relationship requires daily and constant interactions. And because of the fact that we are engaged in the execution of these trust fund projects, it is important as NRPB that we carry our responsibilities to the highest level possible. Why? Because there is one word that sits in everything that we do, and that word is eligibility. The reason why I'm saying eligibility is because of the fact that as an implementation unit, within all of the grant agreements that is established to execute these $1 million projects, any funds that is deemed ineligible by the custodian, which is the World Bank, means that the St. Martin taxpayers would have to pay that money back. That is the reason why, as an institution, we take our responsibilities seriously. We ensure that to the best of our ability, that everything is carried out in a transparent, professional, and to the highest standard. And we protect this small little community and economy that we have, because it's the only thing that we have. If you ask my staff in the NRPB what is the most important element or principle that we work from, is that we want to do this once. And the only way we can do it once is that if we do it right. So with that, without further ado, I want you to really engage in this evening's proceedings. This is an evening where you as an audience and as a community online can ask your questions. We're happy to have the practice manager of the World Bank for procurement in our midst. We have in heading our procurement department a very experienced individual who also has many years of experience working with the World Bank, executing our procurement department. And on behalf of all of us at NRPB, we thank you and welcome you to this evening. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Director Connor. I have all of these tall gentlemen, so I can't move the mic too much. I have to kind of be on my tippy toes. Next, we will invite Santiago, the head of the NRPB's procurement department, to the stage, where he will set the context for this evening's discussion, and then he will introduce Mr. Veredo. Santiago?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. As mentioned, my name is Santiago Ibargüen. I am the head of procurement for the NRPB at the moment, and I have the pleasure of leading a very diverse team, both in terms of gender, but in terms of nationalities. And about half my team is from St. Martin, and so we try to as much as we can, as much as we, both within the NRPB and throughout the involvement of the local market and communities in our projects, to involve as much as possible the St. Martin community, so that you guys and the entire community can benefit to the maximum of these opportunities and to contribute to the rebuilding of the country. So to set the context, I wanted to set a bit of the context. So we have a procurement mission, and our mission in procurement is to make sure that every single dollar that is spent in accordance to the rules set forth by the grant agreements, and those rules that we have to follow are the World Bank procurement regulations. So we try to, in as much as possible, to combine and find the right balance between complying with the regulations and ensuring local economic participation and opportunities. Now, unfortunately, because of the context of St. Martin, it's not always possible to make sure that only local firms get awarded contracts, because there are certain things that are not available sometimes, or the capacity is reduced. And when you may hear the word capacity, is by no means intending to say there's no capacity of doing things. So we know the market in St. Martin has the ability, the contractors, the builders, the design firms, the supervision firms, the suppliers of goods and services are very capable. But the rules by which we have to play are very specific, and unfortunately, there hasn't been much experience within the country to execute procurement using and applying those regulations. But our inherent goal is to facilitate transparent and fair procurement process. And sometimes people may think transparency means full open books. But unfortunately, transparency goes with fairness. And part of our obligation as a procurement department, as an entity, we are entrusted with a lot of information from contractors, from suppliers, from service providers when they submit bids and proposals to us. And there are some things that we can share and other things that we cannot share because it's proprietary information. But as far as our processes go, the processes are fully open and transparent and subject to audits and reviews. And even those confidential information or documents are also subject to audit by the World Bank and by the auditing firms. But we try to always ensure the right balance between transparency and fairness of the process, creating opportunities for local businesses to participate in upcoming projects. And we tried with these procurement engagement events. The idea for this event is to be a dynamic exchange, so we will have presentations to guide the conversation a little bit, but mostly we encourage you guys to ask questions and make comments and suggestions if you have any, so that we can all leave this event better and as a better, let's speak of us as a team to rebuilding St. Martin in the best, most efficient way possible, so that when the trust fund ends, the NRPB ends, the legacy will remain as a positive contributing factor to the St. Martin economy and of course to the St. Martin infrastructure. And the children of St. Martin, as you all know, we have a lot of schools that have been rebuilt, sports facilities and school gyms as well. So that's also very important for us. Now, when we talk about ensuring local participation, we also have to find the right balance between ensuring the local participation, but also value for money. Because one of the main principles of procurement is ensuring value for money. And we are entrusted with those funds, and we are required to spend those funds in the best manner possible. So meaning value for money is the highest impact at the lowest cost. So sometimes there is a balance, delicate, and it may lead, those considerations may lead to local firms not having the opportunity to win certain awards, but we always try to strike the right balance. We want to reach all the sectors. If you look into the NRPB and the projects that we have, our projects are focused on specific areas. So we have education project, we have a emergency recovery project, we have a waste and debris management project, we have enterprise support project, which was solely dedicated to supporting the local market community, this micro, small, and medium enterprises. Not long ago, we had an event celebrating the successes of those firms that received grants and loans to either rebuild their businesses or expand their businesses or improve their businesses. So we have each project is designed with a specific focus, and unfortunately, not all projects can focus on the same things. We try to also, by doing these exercises, try to build the capacity, the experience, for a better word, of working with this type of projects, because this will enable the community in the St. Martin market not only to be successful in winning contracts from the NRPB, from the trust fund, but also maybe you're considering expanding beyond in the region. There are many World Bank funded projects in the region, or IDB funded projects, or other multilateral development funded projects who all follow the same basic principle and in general the same focus on regulations and the same type of implementation of procurement. So consider that also an opportunity for gaining that experience so that you can then be successful in bidding. And one of the things that we mentioned is maybe it's good for the local market here to form joint ventures, to speak with bigger firms from the outside, to associate themselves so that they can, where they do not qualify for themselves to be the lead contractors or the lead firms, to them be able to participate and work with those bigger firms. In the same token, it's a good also learning experience for the St. Martin firms to go out and to find opportunities in other countries, maybe not as a lead contractor or as a lead contractor, working together with the local market community, because of course, knowledge of the local context is very important for all these development projects. So with that, I just wanted to, the idea and inherently, if things are not implemented and executed successfully, everybody loses. Here, nobody wins from not executing these properly, not following the regulations, or nobody wins by excluding anyone here. What we want is to achieve the highest impact at the highest cost, following the basic procurement principles, and of course, the rules and regulations that we are subject to. So with that, speaking of the World Bank, I want to introduce Jean-Jacques Verdeau, who is the procurement practice manager for Latin America and the Caribbean, and I will let him introduce himself and speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Santiago. I would like first to say thank you to NRPB for the invitation for this event, also to the authority of St. Martin for giving us the opportunity to address the community and the community of private enterprise and entrepreneurs that are in the island or are working or have the intention to work in this island and to help with the reconstruction after the events that the island went through some years ago. So just about a little bit about what we do. What is the World Bank? A little bit, very, very quickly. I mean, it's very important for everybody to understand a little bit the context. What is the World Bank and what we are doing, and what is procurement in the World Bank? So the World Bank, as you know, or you may know, is a multilateral development bank. Actually, we make loans, and we also administer trust fund. Most of the time, for development objective in developing countries. And sometimes, as is the case here, we are, in charge of administrating the trust fund that was decided and that was issued and given to St. Martin. And this trust fund has been administered from the World Bank from the beginning in 2018. So what is our role in this trust fund, and what are the rules, I would say, of the game? So for a long time now, the World Bank actually has a fiduciary mandate. A fiduciary mandate that comes from the nation and the countries that at the beginning in 1946 decided that the World Bank will be in charge of reconstructing most of the nation that was destroyed by the war. And then this mandate has been going on for quite a time now. And one of the mandates was actually making sure that the proceeds of the loans, all the proceeds of any funds that we administer, are done with due consideration for economy and efficiency. So we have a mandate. We have a fiduciary mandate. And that's fiduciary mandate translated into a number of rules, and mainly not rules, but principles. And these principles actually have been around for quite a time, because we had the 60th anniversary last year. So the first, what we call principle and guidelines, were issued in 1964, actually. So we had 60-year anniversary last year. And so now it's the 65th year that we try to apply this in principle in these rules. These rules and principles are quite simple. When it comes to procurement, that's, general international best practice, international principle that exist around the world. That's the principle of transparency, the principle of open competition and fair treatment. That's the principle we try actually to achieve, and we try to enforce actually, whether we administrate trust fund or whether we actually are financing what we call investment project. So I'm not going to go into the detail of these rules, because I don't think that you may be interested in all these legalities and things of that sort. But I want to tell us a little bit what are our priorities. And these priorities may change over time. And I would say that we have to adapt to the reality of the world. We have to adapt to the reality of the trade. I'm not talking obviously about the trade war and any other events that we have to go through, but the reality is obviously that our objective is to make things happen. Our objective is to make projects implemented and implemented in a way that really deliver results and deliver results for the people we serve. It's really what is our objective, making sure that we have results on the ground. And to do that, we, again, apply a number of principles and rules, and they are evolving. And so what I'm going to tell you, and I think that it's always interesting, especially for the private sector, what are these principles and the new trends of these principles and rules that we have been applying for now several months. And that's a priority for the bank. And priority, when I say for the bank, not only the institution, for the president of the World Bank, he considers procurement as one of these top priority. And so that's why, we are here actually to enforce it, whether, in countries that receive a loan or in the case of St. Martin when we administrate a trust fund. So again, first of all, Santiago mentioned value for money. What it means, value for money, is really, not only having, the lowest cost, is also having the best quality. It is having, obviously, the best quality at a cost that is reasonable. That's mostly it. I mean, it's kind of intuitive, and that's something that we try to enforce. For a long time, and we could, recognize that, the World Bank was looking at and were promoting, I would say, the lower cost. That's something that's been around for quite a time. That was reason for that, excluding it was not applicable to consulting services. But for anything that was not consulting services, common services, goods, and civil works, we were going for the lowest cost. That was something that was in place, I would say, a regime that exists until more or less 10 years ago. And since 2016, we have decided actually to go another way, to enforce the value for money. That means that we don't go for the lowest cost. And we try to promote that, and we try to enforce that. And to do that, we had to go a little bit gradually. So first of all, we offer the opportunity to use what we call rated criteria. I don't know if you are familiar with rated criteria, but it's really to introduce quality into any assessment of a bid. That's really what rated criteria is. It is something that is very common. It exists, in the EU. It's something that is around the world. But it is something that is not taken really always into account. Quality over price. So first of all, we introduced that in our regulation, our principle. We recognize that it was not always applied by our clients. And why it was not applied by our clients? Because that means that when you put a premium on quality over cost, then you have more expensive, products or more expensive services. So as a result of the fact that we were, a little bit, fighting to impose that, we made it mandatory for most international processes to have a rated criteria and technical criteria taken into account for any assessment of bids. So first of all, you have to know that it's mandatory for most of our procurement processes to take into account technical criteria over cost. As it was not sometimes sufficient and we really wanted to enforce that even further, we have decided some months ago not only to make it mandatory to have this technical criteria taking into account in any evaluation, but also to make it mandatory with a minimum threshold. So a minimum threshold now for most of our international processes are about 50% quality over cost. So that's for most international processes. It's not necessarily for all procurement processes that we are financing, but you have to know that it's a line that we are taking into account for procurement processes that have been started after March 2025. That's the first thing. The second thing that is very important to us, and that's part of this event we are doing today, is to engage with the private sector. And when we say to engage with the private sector, first of all, the private sector to know about procurement opportunities that are coming in the future, and NRPB is doing a great job in that because they maintain obviously a very open and information to what is coming, what are the procurement opportunities, because the private sector could not discover a procurement opportunity when it's published. Just, when they start the process. They have to know, they have to position themselves way in advance. That's why we are doing what we call market engagement, an early market engagement, which means that we want, actually, and that's again the role of NRPB, to engage with the private sector early on, to know what is the capacity of the private sector, to know what are the problems of the private sector, and trying to address this issue and trying to address concern and maybe to facilitate actually always the participation of the private sector in the best condition possible. The third issue I would like to emphasize in the policy of the World Bank, and again, policy of the World Bank is quite long and sometimes detailed, but I think I am insisting only on 4 points. Or maybe I have 5th point, but you will come for me. But I have 4 points. So the third one is about complaints. So the World Bank actually has a complaint system that is open to the private sector to make their rights heard. This complaint system, it's very counterintuitive because you are not going to find a lot, procurement official or any government or any authority saying, we want you to complain. That's not that we want you to complain, but we want you to have your rights that are heard and handled properly by, the authority who is in charge of the procurement process, and for the World Bank, actually, to know what's going on when you think that your rights have been, impaired by any procurement process. So I want to tell you that for any procurement process, you have fairness by the World Bank. You have the right to complain. And I know that you got some complaint in the past, but you have the right to complain. But what we have done recently to be able to follow complaints a little bit better than we were before, we have now a mailbox that is available, which is P-Procurement. There is 2 P. P-Procurement complaints at worldbank.org, where you could where you could copy your complaints. And I can assure you that every single complaint is looked very, very carefully. I am really in charge of that, and I make sure that all complaints are really treated and handled, and that all the rights of the private sector are very much heard of. I'm going to finish, but something that will resonate, I'm sure, not only here, actually, it resonates in a lot of countries I visit. That's the issue of what is the market, international market has become these last few years, I have to say. The bank do recognize that we have a problem. It's not Houston we have a problem, it's that the bank, we have a problem. What is our problem? We have seen in a number of regions, in a lot of our bank finance contracts, the unfair competitive practices. That means, and I know that you could be sensitive to this topic because I think that I heard some issue here also that was going on, that we heard that, we know that we are promoting, open competition. We are promoting, that companies from anywhere in the world could participate. But if they participate, they have to do that with in mind the fact that they have to play by the rules. And sometimes we recognize that they do not play by the rules. And some companies do not play by the rules. That's what we call unfair competitive practice. That's the best word we said. Now it has become a buzzword in the World Bank. But anyway, so the unfair competitive practice is really trying to fight any, company who wants to enter in market. And actually, we, for instance, are going to underbid what normally should be a normal price and what should be a normal market price. And underbid, that means that actually they are going to propose a price that does not reflect actually what is the real cost for them and what is their cost and profit. We have seen that in a number of regions. We have seen that not necessarily in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is my responsibility, in other regions, but we have all seen that in the Caribbean. And we are ready to fight against these practices. And when we see these practices, you could count on the World Bank to make sure that we seize these practices, that they do not exist anymore. Because as far as we are open to international competition, we want to make sure that everyone plays by the rule. And again, I'm telling you, not everyone is playing by the rule, and you have to know that we know it, and we try to fight it, and we try to limit, these unfair competitive practices. So there is different way to do it, and you could rest assured that we make sure that it does not happen as far as we could. There is my last point, so I have my fifth point. So I have 5 points. My last point, I think, is going to resonate also with you, is that we are, a development, I'm not saying agency, we are multilateral, we are a development organization, international institution that obviously promote development. We have a mission which is actually mostly fight poverty, but not only. I mean, our mission changed a little bit, from time to time, but is always actually to meet some development objective. And when we say we want to meet development objective, is really we want to make a difference on the ground. And what does that mean is we want actually to develop, we are a development agency, again, it does not apply necessarily to St. Martin, but our objective is to develop local industry, to develop local economy, to develop local employment. So as part of the new feature that we are actually promoting these days, and I've been always there, by the way, but we are making it more compulsory and mandatory for our procurement processes, is to promote local, I would say. And what does that mean, promote local? Do not make the mistake. Promote local does not mean barring international companies to come. It is sometimes a fine line, because we have what it is, promoting local development and what we call local content. Local content has a certain discriminatory, I would say, discriminatory aspect of it, when promoting local development is a different issue. So what is in the making and what is our priority when it comes to that? First of all, the bank has decided, and we are going to put that in motion in the next few weeks, that any civil works contracts must have 30% local employees, local employment. That's something that will be, again, effective in the next few weeks. Normally, it was supposed to be July. We will disseminate the information whenever we can and when it's official. Another way of promoting local development is using, again, it's a technical term, but what we call rated criteria. So rated criteria is, again, quality. So it's criteria based on quality. It's a very generic term. Quality could mean a lot of different things. Part of the rated criteria, what in this region, particularly in this region, I want to give credit to our senior management in the region, Latin America. You have to know that jobs and local development is really a priority, and it's priority for the whole region, and not only the Caribbean, is really priority for all region. We want that in rated criteria, local development criteria are taken into account. What are local development criteria? It is, again, could be local employees, it could be local training, it could be transfer of some know-how, it could be all these kind of things, as long as it is not discriminatory. And what is a rated criteria? Rated criteria is just a premium. It's not something that is going to exclude anyone. It's really a premium saying, oh, you come here, you come to this country with, this bid. If you have a number, for instance, of people you are committed to train, local people to train or to do capacity building, we will give you a premium at the time of the assessment. That is what is about, this rated criteria. It is not at all something to exclude. It is something actually to promote local development. And I have to say, you could tell me that how it goes, with some even our shareholders about that position. And when I say shareholders, some shareholders that actually have these, large international firms, they are very, very in favor of that. They are very in favor of that because it's usually a win-win situation. Because even you have international firm, if they have this kind of criteria, that means that they have or they may associate with a local firm. And when you associate with the local firm, that gives to the local firms and obviously for local development an opportunity. So if you are a local firm here, don't see yourself or your company against international. See that as an opportunity for association. That's the best way that it could work for everybody winning actually and being able to deliver the best result on the ground. So that's a summary of our priorities. If you have any question, and I always try to, I didn't follow maybe I used not to follow anything. I'm not very good student. I used to be not a good student. I'm still not a good student. So anyway, I want to have this opportunity for you to ask questions about that and regarding again these 5 points I've just mentioned to you. But I think it's important that you know that through the trust fund and through the work in NRPB, everybody has a chance, and especially with all these new features I just mentioned to you. Thank you very much.
Jean-Jacques, I'm going to ask you to come back to the stage. You don't get away just yet. So right now we are going to give the audience the opportunity to ask Jean-Jacques, while we have him, any questions that they may have about his presentation. Still to come, we will hear about some success strategies for local firms. We still have an overview of the Procurement Manual and the Bonfire system, so there will be another opportunity for questions at the end. For right now, we do want to give persons the opportunity to ask questions about what they just heard. Before we begin, we just want to set a few light ground rules. Please keep your questions brief and to the point. You will be allowed one follow-up question if needed. There's a microphone set up in the aisle that you can step to ask your questions. If you'd rather not speak in the microphone, you can submit your questions digitally using the QR codes at the tables at the front. And then finally, we ask that we keep things respectful, professional, and constructive. We want to make space for as many voices as possible and for the conversations to remain useful. So I would ask anyone that has any questions, they can step to the mic, they can introduce themselves, and Jean-Jacques is here to answer any questions that we may have at this time, following which we will have a short refreshment break. There's anyone? Jean-Jacques, I think your presentation was very comprehensive. No one seems to have any questions. I always see that as a good sign. That means you answered any lingering doubts that persons might have had. Okay, excellent. You can return to your seat then.
No, but, excuse me. I just wanted to say that, I have a 6 point. Sorry. No, the fact that when we're talking about market engagement, we want sure, you have a terrific team here. Absolutely incredible team in NRPB. We know all the professionals you have here in NRPB. But I want to tell you that we are available for any question. NRPB, they have my, my details, my contact information. What we are not shy is actually to interact with you if you have any question and any concern and you want to interact and you have a specific question. Obviously, we could not give you, privileged information about process that is, just going on. But if you have any question that the colleagues from NRPB could not answer or they want to convey that question or concern to us, do not hesitate to contact us. I have to say that I do that every time, so now my mailbox is piling up. But I respond to every single request and concern. Responsiveness is, my religion. I do respond to everyone. So if you have concern and you have question, do not hesitate to contact NRPB or to contact me directly. I will be very happy, try to answer your question. Thank you.
And we will be sharing Jean-Jacques' contact information as well as all of the presentations this evening after tonight's session. So if you did not register at the front, please do, because that is how we get your contact information to be able not just to follow up from tonight, but to invite you to other information sessions that we will have in the very near future. Right now, we're going to take about a 10-minute break because I knew a lot of you came straight from work and you came in when we were already started. We do have some light refreshments at the bar, and we will be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
Oui, non, formidable. Oui. Tabou, balancé. Ah oui, oui. Ah oui, non, on fait ce qu'on peut, on fait maximum. Business community, on a mis en... Merci. On a fait le maximum pour attirer l'attention. Oh, mais merci. Merci. Tout à fait. Oui, oui. Oui, oui. Bon, bon. Bon.
We have about 2 minutes left in our break, so I'm going to ask that persons already start to consider moving back to their seats.
That works.
All right, I'm going to ask if persons can please return to their seats so that we can continue with the rest of the program. As a reminder, we do have QR codes available so that you can anonymously post your questions if you feel a little bit shy about stepping up to the mic. The codes are on the table. You can just scan it, type in your question, and we will make sure that they are asked during this session. All right. I saw a lot of conversations during the break. That was great. That means that the material that you heard was insightful and you just had to speak amongst each other. I saw a lot of people making use of the opportunity to speak to Jean-Jacques and also speak to Santiago. Both these gentlemen will be available for the rest of the evening. But we also want to say that we do have a procurement department that is always ready and available to answer questions that you may have. And I would want to think that everyone in this room is aware of the email address procurement@nrpbsxm.com or tenders@nrpbsxm.org. You can also always stop by our office and someone in the procurement department will be happy to answer any questions that you have. So you don't have to wait for sessions like this. The team is always ready, willing, and available to answer all of your queries. Now we will move on to the next part of the program, and I'd like to call Santiago back to the stage. He will join us for this segment, and shortly after introduce our next speaker as well, Irina Richardson. And together they will speak on procurement opportunities, some tips and things that you should do and shouldn't do, And they will also speak lightly about the Procurement Manual and the e-Bonfire system that is currently being implemented. With that, I would like to turn the microphone back over to Santiago.
Hello again. Oops, let me try to stick to the microphone. Oops. Okay, so as I said before, the intent for this is to be an interactive session because we can always share information by email, presentations, you can consult. A lot of resources available both on our webpage and on the World Bank's webpage. But here we have the opportunity to have a dialogue, to talk together, to ask questions, to answer maybe questions that you've heard things in the press, in the business community, and you want to see what is really happening. Why are things happening or some things not happening? But we also want to make the intent is to make the effort to show how together we can build that capacity, that experience to move forward and to work together. And of course, to give some tips. And I know the major contractors and the big contractors and the big firms know a lot of these things. But the idea is to push forward the smaller contractors, the smaller firms, for them to gain that knowledge, to be able and to know how they can reach. Because sometimes, as a small contractor, you may be overwhelmed and think, how can I get on to the next step? What can I do to qualify for some tenders? Of course, if you have a $10 million infrastructure project and you have a small company, a contracting company or landscaping company, it's going to be hard to be competitive. But there's always opportunities to work as a subcontractor and with the bigger firms. And so some of this information, of course, may seem obvious to some, as major or bigger contractors, but it's not always too obvious to everybody. So just, it doesn't hurt to re-emphasize it and to show it. So what's important? Of course, if you have your business, your strength is whatever business you're in. That is your core strength. But not all businesses are strong all across the board. So it's important to identify what are our strengths, what can we contribute most, and also, of course, what are our weaknesses. So we can see the idea is to complement each other. Find another firm that have some weaknesses are actually your strength, and vice versa. So it's important for you to have that. Of course, the local context, the local experience is extremely valuable when bigger firms come for major projects like the airport reconstruction project, like the hospital reconstruction project. So it's important to know, hey, approach those people if there are forums sometimes, say, hey, I'm here, I'm a contractor, I'm ready to help, I have this local context, the knowledge and experience, I know how things work, I know all the requirements to set up a business, I know the requirements on how to start to be able to mobilize all the administrative processes required, because every single country has different processes in place for any type of process for firms to establish themselves. Some countries allow it, some countries don't. Some countries have different requirements, different steps. Sometimes you have to do counterintuitive things. You have to apply for something first and something later, and you cannot do it one before the other, one after the other. So it's important. And of course, in terms of implementing your projects, the projects in local context, having the access to the local unskilled labor, for example, it's very important. You have, as a local firm, a local contractor, the knowledge of where to find those unskilled laborers that are efficient, effective, and that can deliver the high quality and the high standards that we need for this type of projects. Then, so in line with this, form partnerships. It's important so that you can complement each other and work together. And by doing that, you are building your credentials. In some of the, on the tenders, you will see the requirements for qualifications. It is not that we change requirements as time goes on. Requirements are set based on the expected value of the contract. So of course, if we expect the contract to be about $3 million, the requirement of the experience requirements for for contractors to qualify is going to be set as a certain threshold. If you have an annual average turnover of $200,000 over the last 5 years, you're not in a safe position to apply for a bid of $5 million, $3 million, or $1.5 million. Maybe you could stretch it to $750 million. So by building those little by little, the capacity and the experience and your credentials, you become more eligible. Sometimes the requirements is not just based on financials. It's based on how many projects, how many similar projects have you worked in the past. So as a subcontractor, it's still a valid experience. Yes, sometimes we assess companies based on the actual company's experience, but part of the evaluations also is evaluating the firms, the subcontracting firms, or the partner firms in the joint ventures. So it's important. It's never a bad thing to have to work with somebody else. I'm sure there's always a learning opportunity as well. And of course, it's important that when you go over a bidding document, you identify whether or not you will meet the qualification criteria. Because it is quite an effort. It is resource intensive. It takes time. It takes people. It costs money to prepare a bid, to prepare a proposal. The bigger the project, the more complicated it may be, or the more resource intensive it may be. You have to reach out to international suppliers to get quotes, to have estimates on how much more or less your supplies and equipment that you will need for the project will cost. So you need to, of course, make sure that you have the capacity to source the resources you need to be able to successfully implement a project. And then perfect proposals and bids. Very often, we have found, and this is across region and across probably the world, is sometimes bidders make very, very unnecessary mistakes. Very, very unnecessary oversights that sometimes can be curable during the evaluation process, and sometimes they're disqualifying. And you will not, unfortunately, if a specific requirement is not met, or if a specific requirement is set as pass-fail, if you do not meet that requirement, you don't pass that first filter, and we cannot consider anything beyond that, because those pass-fail requirements, all those financial requirements are set in collaboration with the technical teams and the procurement team to ensure and to protect the viability of the project that we achieve. In some countries, you will see that the markets complain, oh, this firm always wins the tenders. They always win the multilateral development bank tenders. There's something going on. There's preference for them. But actually, when you look and you drill down and you look at it, it's why? It's because they have perfected the art, because it's an art, to submit bids and proposals for these type of projects. Because, of course, when we're all in our regular day-to-day business, when we're buying things for our family, for our small business, we do whatever we want with our money. We can go to whichever shop we choose to, even if they cost a bit more. Maybe they're a bit closer to me, so I don't care to pay an extra 2%, 5%. Or maybe it's because it's my cousin or my friend. I'd rather shop there than other places. So in this public procurement world, knowing how to submit a proposal, how to prepare a proposal and how to submit a bid is extremely important, because you may have the knowledge, the know-how, the experience, and meet the requirements, but if you do not demonstrate it, that in the documents that you submit, we cannot take into account, even if I know, oh, this firm, they've worked in the past, and they submitted a bid. Well, it's strange. Last time, they submitted a good bid, and they actually won the tender. And this time, they failed to provide the basic requirements. I have no choice but disqualify them. And sometimes for us, it's, well, that's too bad. I really wish we could have worked with these guys again. But unfortunately, the rules and the regulations do not allow us to consider something that is not submitted as part of the bid and the proposals. So for preparation, small little advice for preparation of bids: be informed. And this goes, of course, for you if you go venture outside of your comfort zone, outside of St. Martin. Well, it's important to research the country, research the project, and even locally as well, research your competition. In St. Martin, I am pretty sure most businesses know their competition very well, so it's not really a factor. But if you decide to go somewhere else, it's important to research and to find out what the competition looks like. Because sometimes there may be opportunity for you to work together, or it's an opportunity for you to say, well, you know what, in this country, in this place for this project, I think my firm, we could do a great job there, better than what we can see as a competition there. Let's go for it. Build partnerships. Again, it's very important, and we want to reemphasize the partnership building. because for some projects, inevitably, if you want to qualify, you will have to join forces with other firms, unless you are a very major contractor that works and has international and big financial muscle. Sometimes it will be inevitable that you need to form a partnership. Understand the context, that is, of course, going out or for people coming into the country. Learn the local customs, laws, and markets. And it's, for example, one thing that we've seen is people that bid, international firms that bid for St. Martin tenders don't, or sometimes fail to do that proper research. Unfortunately, we cannot mandate that. We cannot mandate to make a site visit required. We cannot mandate or to see whether they did the market research. What we can assess their capacity to deliver is based on what they submitted in their bids, because that is the only way we can ensure a fair and transparent process. Because if we start considering things that are not part of the package submitted by the firms, then we lose that transparency, we lose that fairness of the process, because the international firm or the other firm that we don't know may say, well, wait a minute, they assess this company based on, well, it's not, they may not know, because we're part of the fairness of the process. We do not share, we cannot share somebody else's bids. So when Jean-Jacques mentions the complaints process, complaints always have to be based on how your proposal and how your bid was assessed, not in comparison to other bidders. And sometimes we've seen the request for us to share bids received, and unfortunately we cannot. We cannot share them because it's part of the confidentiality agreement that we have. When bidders participate in our bids, they trust that they can rest assured that the proprietary information that they're sharing with us will not be shared out in the public. Now, of course, be timely. There are different ways. Long days, not so long ago, we used to do hard copy tenders, just manual tenders where we had to submit. I used to work for the World Health Organization, and I managed procurement of vaccines. And when we received the bids for the vaccines, it would be rooms full of boxes, full of papers, tons of paper. Every vaccine manufacturer would send what they call the vaccine protocols. And those bids were, I mean, I'm talking about almost a warehouse, or quarter of this space just full of boxes. And to evaluate those proposals, you have to go through the pages, go through the documents. Then we moved on to requiring, in addition to the hard copies, so in addition to all those boxes, CDs or CD-ROMs with the proposals or the bids electronically. Luckily for us, we are no longer there. As you know, NRPB is a very young organization. So the main focus of the NRPB at the beginning was project implementation, and it still remains the main focus of the organization, because this is an emergency project overall, an emergency organization, emergency portfolio. So we have had to always emphasize project implementation over beautification, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that we didn't do some work in terms of making things a bit easier, streamlined, organized. And later on, you will see that Irina will present the NRPB Procurement Manual, which goes along, again, with fairness and transparency. It's open, it's available to the public. You can see how we conduct the processes, what are the specific steps in the processes that we go by. And based on that reading, going through those documents will facilitate and help you be a better company at submitting bids and proposals. So we moved, as you see at the beginning of NRPB, we received the hard copies, tenders. Then we moved on because of COVID, but you could say thanks to COVID, we moved to alternative protocols for receipt and submission of bids, and we were allowed as an exception, because of the COVID situation, to receive bids electronically by means of emails. Well, that is a huge improvement, a huge benefit, not only to us as procurement experts, procurement officers, and project teams that have to evaluate those bids, but also as bidders. It saves you money, because you don't have to print all these pages. It saves you money by not having to ship all those documents. We contribute, or we avoid negatively contributing to the environment. And Also, it takes away the stress. Sometimes when you have to show up with your envelope and put it right on time, because if you were 1 minute late, it will be declined, rejected, and you couldn't submit it. And in some places, people play tricks so that they will try to distract bidders at the last minute where they couldn't find a place where they had to go get the stamp. So some places, I've seen in some places where they had to get a clock, a timestamp at the entrance of the ministry so that bidders would know that all they got to do is go with the envelope and timestamp it, because sometimes they would be directed to the wrong building or to the wrong office to submit their bids. So we moved to the email submission of bids with the assistance of a probity assurer, meaning we would receive the bids that were password protected, and the passwords would be shared after the deadline to submit the bids with the probity assurer, a law firm that was hired for the specific purpose, and during the openings, we would open the bids and use the passwords. Well, now we're moving even one step further. We're moving into the 21st century, we're moving with best practice, and we're moving into the world of e-procurement. So electronic procurement, e-government procurement, you will see some places, some people call it EGP because it's e-government procurement, but it's basically a system that allows us to facilitate the process, and it facilitates it not only for us, but it facilitates it for the bidders as well, because now you can immediately upload you can download the bid documents from the platform. You can upload your bid document, and it's very structured and organized, and of course for us, it facilitates the evaluation process, because we can do it within the system. It facilitates, it allows for contract management as well. So we now have this system which will make you ensure that you are timely. So I will encourage people, because bidders always have this tendency to wait to the last minute to submit their bids. This system is a closed system, very secure. Don't wait to the last minute. If you're going to wait till shortly before the deadline, do it 10, 15, 20 minutes before. Don't wait to the last minute, because if you have a technical challenge, it's very difficult for us to resolve it if you call us 1 minute before the deadline, because at that moment we can no longer extend, we cannot accept bids outside of the system, and we can definitely not accept bids after the deadline. So I encourage you to go through the system. It will be a process that we work together on it. So every bid that we will issue moving forward through the system will come with specific provisions for us during the site visits, during the pre-bid or pre-proposal meetings with guidance and instructions. We prepared a how-to document for the bidders to review, and that all will be available to you guys after. So in terms of preparing your bid, so of course, go to the pre-proposal, pre-bid meeting. It's very important because that's where you can actually see what is happening, what is going to be needed, whether you're really going to need to price aggressively, or if you're going to say, well, you know what, for these specific items, we should be okay. We don't need to be pricing as aggressively as for other items where, oh, this is going to be a real challenge. There's a lot of risk doing this. We're going to have to increase our margin for here on this specific case. So it's very important, and that's where you will have access to ask questions. Of course, during any process, the tender process, there's a period for questions and answers. So there's always opportunities for bidders to request clarifications, and also opportunity to provide feedback. If we issue out terms of reference or scope of works that make no sense, if you see drawings that don't make sense, if you see bills of quantities that make no sense, please provide feedback. Ask the question, hey, we saw that in the bill of quantity you have, on your preliminaries bill, you have this. Why do you have this if we're not going to need this specific, I don't know, extra security services or police force presence? So I'm coming up with an unrealistic example, but basically let us know, because we are not infallible, the technical teams are not infallible, and it is the opportunity to correct, because we can always take into account that feedback, those comments, and we can always issue an amendment. If we issue an amendment that's considerable enough that we see that it will require bidders to take a bit more time to consider those new elements, we can definitely extend the deadline to submit the bids and the proposals. So there are many opportunities for bidders to voice concerns, questions, and provide suggestions during the pre-bid meeting, pre-proposal meeting, or during the Q&A sessions of the bidding process. Of course, address the requirements fully. Again, if you don't meet the requirements, we cannot award a contract. It doesn't, and that goes by, and there are different parts of processes that will vary on how we assess the requirements. The experience, for example, propose a strong team. Well, when we are hiring a firm, we first have to assess the qualifications of the firm, the experience of the firm. And then after that, once they pass that threshold, we assess the team they're proposed, the key experts, the special team that they need, or the specific experience or the specific requirements that must be fulfilled. We assess that. We cannot, if a company was established a year ago and the 2 people or 3 people or 4 people that established the company have 50 years experience or 100 years experience combined, but the company doesn't have, and our requirement is for the company to have at least 10 years experience, unfortunately we cannot take that into consideration. And why? It's because there's a big difference between being an individual consultant or being a smaller consultant and being to manage those contracts, and being a major consultant, a major firm to manage a huge contract. And it may seem that it's strange to say, but it's also to protect the local market, the local businesses, because it has been seen that bidders get contracts awarded because they were very good at submitting a proposal. They were very good at preparing a proposal. Maybe they hired somebody to prepare the proposal. But then when it comes to the actual execution, they didn't have the tools, they didn't have the financial muscle to do it, they didn't have the resources to do it. And I have seen it myself, companies go bankrupt because it is the obligation as well. Liquidated the damages applied, or penalties that apply, performance guarantees can also be pulled, because again, as an implementation unit organization, it is also our obligation, our main obligation is to be the best stewards of the funds that are entrusted on us. So it's very important to also take that into account. And of course, don't be shy in highlighting your strengths and your experience. Sometimes we see bidders that do that, very good job at that, and others, you really have to read between the lines to see that they actually meet the requirements. You say, but wait a minute, how come this firm is not giving us a summary of all these projects? We know they've done them. And then you have to go read section by section and read between the lines to say, okay, yes, they do meet the requirements. So don't be shy, highlight the experience, and of course, if you're partnering with a firm, highlight how the 2 firms are going to work together and be effective at project implementation and execution. We recommend using checklists because sometimes there are things that, as I said, are disqualifiable and others are not. So security and signatures. So if you don't submit at NRPB, it was decided not to use bid security. Bid securities because those securities cost money from bidders. So what we use is we call it bid securing declaration. So basically, bidders have to sign that, saying that they commit to fulfilling their promise when they submit a proposal or a bid, to abide by the rules of the process, to fulfill the requirements of the contract. If they don't, unfortunately, they are excluded from processes for X amount of years. In our case, it's 5 years, NRPB processes. If you do not have that, your bid is not existent. We cannot consider your bid. It's as if you had not submitted anything. So all the work you did to prepare a bid is gone. Why? Just because you didn't print a page or PDF a page and just sign and submit. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take more than a few seconds to do, but it is something that would definitely kill your proposal or your bid. So it's very important. Include the proper signatures and power of attorney. Make sure that the person signing the proposal or the bid is the legal representative of the company, because if we don't, then the bid is not valid. Because if the person signing the bid has no authority to commit the organization, the company, then the bid is not valid. And of course, if you're forming a joint venture, you need to submit your joint venture agreement with it. Of course, the references, if we request references, CVs, and so on, it's important to make sure that you submit. Usually for references, we will not disqualify your bid. We will request clarification. Hey, can you please provide references for these specific projects that you mentioned in your bid? And then we can take those into account. And then sign CVs for key experts. And the key expert proposed, it's important also to know that we assess bids based on the key experts proposed, or the proposals or the bids, depending on which type of process, on the key experts. There are specific rules to follow if specific firms want to change or need to change key experts. And it happens very often because key experts are called on by companies, and they're being asked if they're available. and they say, yes, I'm available for this project. And then sometimes the procurement process takes a long time until the actual award. And then by the time the contract gets awarded, that consultant is no longer available because they were hired for something else. So they have no choice but to replace. Now, of course, going along with what Jean-Jacques was mentioning of unfair practices, it cannot be that is used to win a bid and then come up with a less qualified expert and cheaper expert so that you can increase a bit your profits. Replacement of key experts must be of the same or higher experience and education requirements as the one that was accepted previously. Otherwise, you cannot use that key expert. And of course, you are required, you must, as part of the contractual agreement and the conditions, fulfill those requirements. And then in presenting the bids, and I put it in red because it still happens, bidders are disqualified because they're submitting their financial information, so the financial offer with the technical offer. There's specific purpose for first evaluating the technical and then evaluating financial. And if you submit your financial offer within your technical proposal or bid, your bid is dead. We cannot consider your bid. So it's very important, and it happens, and I put it in red because it happens time and time again, and we don't know how to highlight it, not to do it, because we say it in the bid. Now with the e-procurement, it's even easier because it's two different sections, technical and financial. It's upload buttons to upload specific documents. So it's very easy, but sometimes in the letter of bid for the technical proposal, people somehow forget and they leave and they put their financial offer. And unfortunately, that is a disqualifiable mistake. So please do not make that mistake because it's very silly and unnecessary. Place discounts in the cover letter. And of course, submit a professional and complete proposal. I mean, that goes without saying. Presentation is important, but of course, content is what will guide the evaluation. So common pitfalls to avoid. The security issues, so missing or insufficient bid security. So bid security have to be for a specific amount, for a specific duration. If we amend the deadline to submit bids, or if we request an extension of bid validity, those instruments must be updated as well. They must be extended as well. Now, because we use bid security declaration, there's no need to extend because that is for the period of time that it takes to complete the procurement process. But of course, if we need to extend the bid validity, we will request so from the bidders. Documentation gaps, again, incomplete bids, missing supporting documents that may disqualify. Some may disqualify, some may not. So you might as well not take the risk and make sure to include everything. If in doubt, send us an email, send a message, correspondence through the system, and we will be definitely answering questions. We've had we try as much as possible to evolve, to grow, to be better. So we're not infallible. Mistakes have been made. We try to learn from the lessons, and we try to put in place systems and processes that minimize the occurrence of mistakes or issues, and that can mitigate the potential impact of those risks. So, for example, we created a specific inbox for tenders. It's called Procurement Tenders at nrpbsxm.org. That is solely to submit questions, concerns, or emails about ongoing tenders. Because we have a procurement inbox, and we would be receiving all emails in there, and we would get hundreds of emails. And sometimes one small email about a specific project would slip through the cracks and would have a negative impact on procurement processes. So we established that as a stopgap measure while we worked on the implementation of the e-procurement. We've been working with the bank and within the NRPB to implement, to source, first of all, and to select the proper and the most adequate e-procurement solution for St. Martin. And then in collaboration with the bank, it was cleared, and now we have sourced that system. Our internal team has been trained. We have now launched the first tender in the e-procurement solution for the Système Marie Laurence reconstruction. So I encourage everybody, there's some QR codes for you to register. Your company, you register. Once you register in the platform, you will get automatic notifications of any tender that we issue. And depending on how you register, you will either only receive those that are specifically to your business, or if you register and you include additional commodity codes. I'm not going to go into detail into how you register because we have a specific guidance document for that. But you will get notifications, and you will also get notifications by email from other business opportunities from the region, from other implementation organizations that use Bonfire. The Bonfire system is being used in the Caribbean, a few countries, in Haiti, Barbados, St. Lucia. I'm not sure if St. Vincent as well, but it's been adopted more and more, especially in the region. So I encourage you to utilize that to, of course, access our business opportunities, but of course, other opportunities in neighboring islands or in the region that you may be interested in. Conflict of interest, of course, we cannot be submitting bids under multiple different names, the same people, the same individuals on different names. And of course, if we have a specific conflict of interest, because we know the procurement officer, because we know the project manager of the specific project, whatever it may be, if there is a conflict of interest, of course, that has to be declared. And often conflict of interest, just the perception of it is what is negative and what has a bad impact. So it may not be that there's actually no conflict of interest, but it seems the perception of it is also already a bad thing. So we try to avoid it as much as possible. And how we do that is internally, any person involved in the procurement process has to sign a no conflict of interest declaration form for every specific project. So it's not only our employment contract says, of course, that we're bound by confidentiality, but every single process, we remind every evaluation committee member, every member participating in providing, preparing designs or scope of works, they have to sign the document. And that document also says, you may not have a conflict of interest now, but if you discovered at any point during the process that a conflict of interest came up, you must declare it. And then they declare it, and then either they are excused from the evaluation committee, or they may think they have a conflict of interest. They come to us and say, I think there's a conflict of interest because I've spoken to this person once in my life. I say, well, we're going to say, well, don't worry. That's not a conflict of interest. Of course, especially in the small island context, people know each other. And that is the beauty of small island context. People know each other, businesses know each other. So that is always important to declare it. We assess, and then we make a determination. And of course, we would not, over excluding a firm or excluding an evaluation committee member, of course, we would exclude the evaluation committee member so that the firm can participate, and we can always find somebody else to stand in as an evaluator for those tenders. And of course, unsigned bids, improper authorizations, I mentioned that already. Sorry for the font, it escaped. Here is just, I wanted to give you a visual for the number of contracts awarded by the NRPB. And I know it's just for the picture, for the visual. You're not going to be able to read everything, but basically the first two columns is the total of NRPB contracts awarded in dollars. And then, of course, next to it, you have the total amount of contracts awarded to St. Martin firms. That is just for the total. Then we have here the works. Here you'll see the comparison between these two is because sometimes there are projects that inevitably you would not have the capacity, the experience, the know-how. If we were to build a nuclear power plant here, I don't think any contractor here or any design firm here has experience building a nuclear facility. So of course, we have no choice but to go. So for example, here, this includes the shipwreck removals, which was a works contract, because we had to get specific capacity from outside, from the Netherlands in this case, to be able to deliver on this project. Now, those firms hired local people to work with them, but the contract was awarded to an international firm. But then, if we exclude the shipwreck removal contract, because it was a substantial contract, then you will see here that the gap is a bit much less. Because this is how much we awarded to local contractors, and this is how much we awarded to foreign contractors. And then goes on, this is non-consulting services. Of course, non-consulting services is a very small part, but we still included it, and it's always total, St. Martin, foreigner. Total, this is for consulting services. This is including NRPB operational consultants. The NRPB is constituted of a lot of local staff, but of course also quite a few international consultants. So here you see the, and again, transparency. I'm showing a graphic that sometimes shows a good image, and sometimes, well, yes, you could see here that there's a big gap between the amount of consulting services contracts awarded to St. Martin firms versus international firms. Now, this is excluding now NRPB consultants, operational consultants, and of course now the gap is reduced quite a bit, but still there's a big gap here. And just for consulting services, for example, here you will see that of all these St. Martin consulting services, here, these were awarded to one firm. So again, maybe that firm is very good at submitting proposals, very good at preparing the bids, or they are one of the most qualified firms on the island to execute those services. Now here, and this is including capacity available in St. Martin. This is excluding NRPB consultant and excluding capacity not present on the island. Senior procurement officers, for example, are very few in between. We've launched quite a few tender processes to select, to hire procurement officers from the island, and unfortunately we've not always been successful, and we were also successful. We found also some, and the intent is to build the capacity so that then when we go away, they will be the ones to be able to step up to the plate in St. Martin to support government in implementing this type of projects and to have that capacity in procurement that we didn't have. St. Martin did not have that capacity 5-6 years ago, and now it will have it. And now when other multilateral development banks or financiers want to come and support projects here on the island, they will have that confidence because they know, oh, these guys have worked already with public funds. They worked already in public procurement. If they managed a World Bank Trust Fund, I'm sure they'll be able to manage our project. So it's very important, but so it was inevitable to find, the need to find capacity that was not present on St. Martin to execute the projects, because again, the main objective of all this is to execute the projects and complete the projects. And then this is for goods, including heavy equipment, again, not available on the island. And then this is for goods, excluding specialized equipment that would not be otherwise available on St. Martin. So this was just to give you a visual representation so that you guys can see where it is. And of course, all these, there's a lot of reports in the World Bank, the progress reports. You can find a lot of information if you look for it or if you ask for it, and we'll be always happy to facilitate that and to share the information with you guys. Here you see example of past tenders. We have here the Belvedere Towers, which was a significant achievement for the ERP1 project. We repaired the 6 towers, and so here's the before and after picture. And so for the school repairs, for example, here I just wanted to draw a bit from the previous. Sometimes the local firm will lead, and sometimes the local firm will be a subcontractor and will not lead. But all these amount to business opportunities and profits and gains for the local businesses. And then, of course, again, highlighting your strength and your weaknesses, or local knowledge, competitiveness of the pricing, because you don't have to mobilize. You already have an office. In a small island like this, you don't need to set up a site office as complex as you would in, I don't know, if you're in Guyana and you have to implement a project in the middle of the jungle. Well, you're going to have to mobilize a lot of your established resources in the capital and go and establish there. Here, well, you may be able to just be okay with a small site office and the small facilities. So, of course, availability of equipment and resources and the workforce. And one of your main advantages, of course, is rapid mobilization, because you don't have the need for work permits. You don't have the need for residence permits. Basically, you're ready to go. You can immediately, if we have an emergency project, and things that need to be responded to quickly, you have the capacity. The example here, we had a failed tender for the demolition process and reconstruction of Sister Marie Laurence. We went, again, in procurement, always aggregating procurement, bulk procurement is a way to achieve value for money, and that is why we had combined those activities together. And also because everything is not ready at the same time. Designs are not all ready for all 20 schools and all facilities at the same time. It's a process that takes some time. So what do? We react. Initially we launched to achieve the best value for money. We failed. Now, instead of relaunching the same way we did before, we stopped. And we said, okay, how can we make this happen? First of all, we need this to happen fast, because now we'd lost 4 months, 6 months, and we need it to be done. So how can we do it best? Boom, we're going to split. Now we're going to issue a new tender where demolition is inside. Now it gives the opportunity for smaller contractors to qualify and participate, and then we'll issue a separate tender for the reconstruction of the school. And then after this, we reacted, and we had a successful, hopefully outcome very soon in the award of the demolition contract. And we have already registered a lot of interest in the Sister Marie Laurence project on the e-procurement system. Yep. So just almost closing, success stories here. You'll see a couple of weeks ago we had this very same place, a results fair for the MSMEs that benefited from the enterprise support project, meaning they received grants and loans to develop, embellish, or improve their businesses. And here was a very beautiful demonstration of how these projects have a direct impact in the community, because not only can these people feed their families, but the people that work for them can also feed their families. So it's a nice little circle that came around, and I think it's a very valuable outcome of the project. So here you'll see the children happily playing in the Sister Borgia school. Again, the design was done by a local firm. The works were done by a local firm, same as for Sister Magda school. And here you have the shelters that were also done early on in the early stages of the trust fund. And here you see specific housing, because we try to build back better, of course, in as much as possible, in as much as within the budgets available. But here, for example, you see the housing for a generator, because in terms of emergency response and preparedness, well, having power supply is very important, and protecting the power supply is important. So we had a specific facility built for the generator. Now, these QR codes are here for you to, we will share the presentation, so please make sure you register. This will be made available also on our webpage, but basically these QR codes take you to, on this side, will take you to the registration page for the Bonfire for NRPB. And this page will take you to the World Bank Business Opportunities page directly. So there you will see all the public notices that have been issued for all World Bank projects. Of course, you will filter by St. Martin or the region, but all those are available in the World Bank. So you will be able to see those and access those there. With that, I don't know if anybody has any questions, so I don't take away. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, but yes, please go ahead, Yuri. Maybe Jean-Jacques, you may have to help me answer, but I'll try to answer.
You should just be able to speak and it's already on.
No.
I stand to be corrected. I'm coming to you.
Hello, sorry. I think it's got child lock on it or something. Thank you, Santiago. Good presentation. I have a question or remark about one of the items you brought forward about joint ventures. It's a conflict of interest not to participate in multiple bids. In the case of a subcontractor, a subconsultant, is that the same?
No, subcontracting, you're eligible to be a subcontractor on the multiple bids, because, for example, let's say you're the only contractor or subcontractor available. That is not a conflict of interest, and that is not an issue. You can participate as a subcontractor for different lead firms that submit bids.
Okay. Together with the previous announcements that about 30% of the people working in NRPB project have to be local. So in that sense, a local company can take part in multiple bids, if anything, all the bids, if they're a subconsultant or a subcontractor?
If you have the capacity to deliver, I guess so. I'm not sure I understand the nuance of your question, but because also keep in mind, remember that Jean-Jacques said this will start in a few weeks, the requirements. So we incentivize in as much as possible local participation as we could before. Now it will be a contractual requirement, so they will have to fulfill that promise and deliver on that. But there will be no limitation on, it's not going to count on 30% whether, okay, jury, we count in ICE as 30% on this contract, so ICE can, if they participate in another tender, those 30%.
No, in the same tender.
In the same tender?
Yeah, same tender, of course.
No, yeah, you can participate in the same tender as a subcontractor, and there's no problem. And of course,
okay.
The labor, the 30% will count.
All right, thank you. No one else have questions? You have questions.
I do not. I'm just here to facilitate. I'm looking around the room. Okay, so Santiago, we'd like to thank you for your presentation. And I'm coming, Director. And I already invite Rena to start to make her way to the stage.
If you could go back to the slide with the red, with the red notice, the one that you highlighted with regard to, do not include financial bid info. But you also said, place discounts in covering letter. What do you mean exactly with that? And how does that relate to the financial bids?
So sometimes when we issue some tenders, we have lots. And sometimes the firms can offer discounts if you award, if I'm going to bid on lot 1, 2, and 3. If I win only one award, one lot, then this is my price. But if I get award of 2 lots or 3 lots, these are my offer discounts for the company. So that is not taken into account into the evaluation of but it's something that is adhered to when the contract is signed and in terms of the pricing.
The reason why I said it is because you said the error that some bidders make is that they would put the financial bid with a technical bid. And if you're saying that the covering letter is only with the financial bid, then is where you would note that discount, because you can't note it in the technical.
So there's 2 letters of bid. There's a letter of bid that goes with the technical proposal submission, and then there's also the letter of bid that goes with the financial. And that is where you need to, please don't put, so your technical proposal should not mention or include anything that has to do with pricing of the upcoming contract or what you are offering. That's basically the line to follow.
Thank you.
So with that, I will ask Rena, who's a part of my team, to join us and to introduce you guys. We're not going to show the actual manual because it's available online for you guys to go see, but I think we felt important for you guys to be aware of its existence. And of course, she will then move on to presenting the e-procurement system that we have. Rena?
So I'm a bit of a shorty, everybody. Good evening. My name is Rena Richardson, and I'm a procurement officer at the NRPB. I've been here about 3 years now, and prior to that, I worked at the Ministry of Rummy, Department of New Projects Development and Planning as a project manager, and there we also did tenders. So you're probably wondering why I moved over from, let's say, being comfortable in my old job. Well, that's really because I wanted to play a part in the reconstruction of our beautiful island after Hurricane Irma. and I also wanted to expand my knowledge, kind of what we're all doing here today. So I will be talking about the NRPB Procurement Manual and the Bonfire electronic procurement system. So the NRPB Procurement Manual was launched earlier this year in April 2025. And this manual serves as a one-stop guidance for NRPB staff responsible for or involved in the preparation, review, or approval of actions or documents related to the conduct of procurement activities. This document is in English. The manual is available for access via visiting the NRPB webpage, www.nrpbxsm.org/procurement, and then clicking the blue tab NRPB Procurement Manual. So what is this manual? Well, it's a working document for the NRPB staff/consultants involved in procurement. Now, not everybody knows what procurement is. Not everybody knows how the processes are supposed to go. So this gives everybody a brief idea of how it goes, what they need to do, and how we can accomplish a successful procurement. It covers all procurement activities undertaken by the NRPB on its behalf or on behalf of government entities as applicable. It also has provisions to manage external funded projects such as from the World Bank. As custodians of the funds entrusted to the NRPB, our mission is to achieve value for money in procuring goods, works, and services according to its respective mandates. The manual outlines our core principles, our duty in integrity and confidentiality, the definition of fraud and corruption, and conflict of interest, also attaining to our roles and responsibilities within the process. It also outlines the procurement process, which can be broadly defined as a process that starts with the identification of a need and continues through the fulfillment of this need. This is done through proper planning, solicitation, implementation with adequate contract management. The manual provides step-by-step instructions, overviews, and illustrations on the different documents, milestones, requirements, and procedures needed for a successful procurement process. Again, I mentioned, if you would like to visit and review the procurement manual to get an idea of how procurement is done within the NRPB, please visit www.nrpbxsm.org/procurement and then click the blue tab NRPB Procurement Manual. I will now go over to a little bit of our Bonfire electronic procurement system. So Bonfire is a comprehensive procurement management platform designed to streamline the entire procurement lifestyle. So my colleague, Santiago, my head of my department, he kind of gave away most of my presentation on this. So I will be brief and short. So prior to this, NRPB used a mix of an electronic submission system, email correspondence, and virtual meetings with openings with the use of a property assessor. This came about due to COVID, where we no longer accepted hard copy submissions and in-person meetings. Submissions were hand-delivered or even sent by mail courier prior to this. These documents were sometimes very thick and were sent in duplicate, triplicate, and you can imagine how much papers were being used for this. With this system now, no paper exchanges are being used and everything runs through one system. Benefits of the e-procurement system, as you can see here on the slide, is procurement, here we go. Procurement, e-procurement, revolution buying and markets. So it's cloud-based, a collaborative procurement platform. It runs about over 1 billion supplier decisions monthly. Trusted public agencies across North America. It streamlines bidding, runs project 50% faster, and enhances transparency for public and public confidence in sourcing. Makes procurement more accessible for suppliers, easy submission, digitizes procurement, fosters fair vendor competition. So here you will see on one side the digital platform. This is for the vendors. And on the other side, you will see NRPB Procurement Portal. We're proud to say that we recently launched the reconstruction of the system in Rile-Laurence. This is our first project using the Bonfire e-procurement system. As Santiago mentioned, we do have the Q code where you can register directly to the portal. It is a simple click on the website. Once you reach there, you will then fill in your email address and you will receive an email indicating what the further steps to register for this activity. Once you enter our portal, for our NRPB procurement portal, you will then be able to see all the projects that we have currently launched. As mentioned, this is our first one, so right now we only have one. Once you click on this, you will then note the calendar of events as well as project details, which also includes the closing date of this project. You will then notice the supporting documents. So this will usually be our standard procurement documents. In this case, this is a request for bids. You will then also see the annexes which accompany this request for bids. So this will usually be the technical documentations, any drawings, any reports that the technical team feels that you must have in order to prepare an adequate bid. You will then further see the requested information, and this is also in line with what's within the request for bids. It may look kind of frightening because you will see here the letter of bid, and then of course the appendixes A, B, C, D, and E. Now with this system, it requires you to fill in these documents, so you cannot move on to filling in the next point without successfully filling in the first point. This also is a benefit to you because there will be no mistakes in submitting your bid. You will submit every required document, so we'll never have to worry that you didn't have it there within. The documents will then also be mandatory. So like I said, without you filling in or providing this information, you will not be able to submit your bid. And of course, the e-procurement allows it to be sealed, so we will not be able to access your documents until the closing of the submission period. As well as the submission possibilities, there's also the opportunity to ask questions directly to the owner of the projects, which is the NRPB. And this is here where you will have the opportunity to request your clarifications, and there will also be the opportunity for us, the NRPB, to give you the answers to your questions, as well as all our information that we feel we need to provide to the bidders. This would also include any amendments that might occur during the process. On the vendor side, this is also a great opportunity for you to also reach out to also be aware of all other possibilities within the rest of the world, so not only on St. Martin. You will notice that once you register, you will have to fill in a commodity code, which is basically a code which selects to the type of specialization that you're in. So once any other activity comes about within the Bonfire system, you will then be notified by email that this project is ready to launch, and then you can also submit a bid or proposal for this project. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Rina. I will put this back here. So again, we didn't want to go through too much detail in this presentation. We could go through the entire and demo the platform, but we configured it. It's an out-of-the-box system, so we configured it to make it as simple as possible for the registration process. So it's not going to be a painstaking process, and once you register, that's it. You don't have to do it over and over again. Once you register, and to be able to register with other project implementation units for other projects in other places, or even within St. Martin if there's further adoption of the system, all you need to do is, based on the commodity codes that you select when you register, so if you say you're infrastructure design supervision firm, then you will be notified of all the business opportunities under that code. If you say you're a public infrastructure building contractor, then you will be able, and there's many different levels. We will be always happy to help you with that. Those codes are sometimes a bit not tricky, but sometimes confusing to make sure that you use the correct one. So if you have any questions, you can always write us. But also feel rest assured that there is all the resources available to help you. So not only are we there to provide support, but this system allows for almost close to real-time support for bidders, even for us. So there's a support, a help button that you can click either to go frequently ask questions, or you can reach out directly with Bonfire team. And they don't work 24/7, but they work during business hours, business days. So that's also there. So please don't feel, don't be afraid to register and to use the system. Change is always feared, or often feared. But in the long run, especially in the implementation of these systems, I have seen it before in other institutions where I implemented similar systems. There's a lot of pushback at the beginning, and then you go 5 years later and tell those people that used to do it the previous way, that are the ones that complain the most about the new system, say, okay, you know what? We're going back to the old ways. I say, no. I love it. We continue. We stick to this because it works. So please, don't be afraid, and make sure that you ask us any questions. It's going to be a learning process, and we will manage those together. So now we have opportunities for additional questions, suggestions. Not sure if there's any further questions. The business opportunities, the tender opportunities for the NRPB, they're available on our website. We will do a bit more concerted effort to highlight a bit that more in our main page, but you can always find the business opportunities available in our webpage. For now, there is the reconstruction of system ailerons, and soon there will be other projects tendered out in the system.
Thank you, Santiago. So as Santiago said, we're going to move over to the opportunity for the audience members if they have any questions. So once again, we would like to invite anyone up to the microphone if they would like a chance to. While you guys are considering that, some persons did submit some questions online. So I'm going to read out one of those questions. It says, first one, and I'm not sure exactly who to give this to. Is there a St. Martin Local Contractors Association? And I'm going to look at Mr. Connor.
Not that I know of. Maybe one of the contractors has a... No, there isn't. Which is a good opportunity to create one. Hey, when there's a gap, if you're there to fill it, it's always a good opportunity.
All right. Another question is, what is the plan in order to confirm and continue to double check to make sure that the 30% local employees are employed at the firm? So once the bid is won, the contractor has hired his 30%. In 6 months, what systems are in place to make sure that that contractor maintains that 30% minimum? I would like to give Jean-Jacques the opportunity.
That's a good question. I'm not sure that they have the answer. That's a problem. I mean, the requirements, so, I mean, the monitoring is an issue. How we are going to monitor the 30% local employees. And what is a local employee? Because we had the other day the question, is it a national of a country, or is it someone that is, in the neighborhood? In some countries, we may have an issue because sometimes we have actually people coming from neighboring countries. Obviously, maybe less the case here, but who are, part of the local workforce. So again, not everything is defined, but what we could assure that it is a commitment that we made, I have to say, to our borrowers, to our beneficiary, and to our board. All these are very important, stakeholders in what we have done. The question is also why 30%? Because there was some that were saying why 30%, 10%, why not 50%? Okay, so we did trying to do an economic, assessment with our economists. We have plenty of economists in the World Bank, so it was easy to find someone to work on the topic. And we came up with a mandatory 30%, because there is always the issue, why 30 and not giving a range, because obviously it could be very much depending on the situation on the ground. So again, we didn't implement that yet. We are committed to make sure that is enforced, and we are going to make sure, as part of our supervision diligence, we are going to make sure that is enforced. But again, how we are going to monitor, we are doing sometimes what we call prior review. We are doing also post-review. We have the intention to make sure that this obligation is enforced, and if obviously one of our contracting authority, in that case NRPB or any other contracting authority, consider that they are not complying with their obligation, they may call actually the World Bank to help and to make sure that is really enforced. We are a third party to this contract, so we are not part of a contract, but still we have a responsibility that these contracts are actually performed according to our rules. And these rules now will include this 30%. So again, I could not respond exactly how we are going to monitor it, but I could tell you that we will make sure that is indeed monitored and executed as promised.
Thank you, Jean-Jacques. Yes.
Jean-Jacques, I have a comment, because considering the 30% you mentioned earlier, that it's all, because we're talking about 30% employees, but you are speaking about 30% in terms of the contract amount. Is that correct?
Yes, we are talking about contract condition, okay? So it will be part of the contract we have two different issues. We have more political at the global stage, which is mandatory 30% at the time of contract execution. It will not be a condition at the time of participation, okay? But that will, what we are going to look at the time of the participation, at the time of the evaluation, is whether we are going to have, we are going to give a premium to anyone that, commit to promote local development. That's one thing. That is slightly different from having a mandatory employment of 30%, normally of value, because that's also a question. Are we talking about the value? Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that. We are talking about civil works only. That's important to know. Civil works, and we are not talking about anything else. That's civil works. So civil works, 30% mandatory, it's a contractual obligation. That will be global World Bank policy as of July. Again, I don't have all the details because the one who are doing that policy, didn't decide on all the details. But that's a global procurement policy. On top of that, in this region, we will give, and so it's again, and really that's Nancy is here, that's part of her job. She knows she has to make sure that what we call rated criteria, the criteria that are used to give a premium to a bid against another, not excluded the bid, just giving a premium to a bid against another, will be based, partly at least, on local development, which could also include some kind of local employment, but not only training, capacity building, all these kind of things. So,
Thank you, Jean-Jacques. And I want to mention here, take the opportunity that we work very closely. As of course, we have to abide by the rules, and we have to take into account the new regulations and changes to the regulations, and we work together. So as Jean-Jacques said, we don't have an answer yet because it hasn't been implemented yet. But We work very closely with the World Bank procurement team. It's not always that you have direct access to the practice manager, but we, in this case in St. Martin, we are privileged to have direct access to the practice manager. And of course, we have a very close collaboration with the procurement specialist. And always when there's concerns or issues, we work together to find solutions to the problems, if there are any, or to adapt to the new requirements. So we will, in due course, work together with the team so that we can make sure that we implement those new requirements, and that, of course, that they're enforced, because if there's a rule, if it's not enforced, then nothing has been accomplished. So I just wanted to mention that. So thank you very much.
Okay, so Santiago, stay right there because I have another question from online. As no one has stepped up to the microphone, I encourage people to please use the microphone. Please do not take the mic, or Sel, please put it back. Please step up to the microphone or put your question in the comment box. Thank you. The next question that we've had is, how can the smaller firms get in contact with the bigger firms for collaboration? And the second similar question also received was, does the NRPB or World Bank have a platform where firms can get in touch with each other for collaboration?
It's a very good question. I don't think the bank has that. We do not have that facility either at the NRPB. It's a good suggestion. It's a good thing to put in place. Usually what happens is in most countries there's local associations, trade associations, and that is their sole focus. There's also in some countries there's the commercial attachés. For specific countries they are assigned to embassies that work to make sure that their companies are put together, are put in touch with each other so that they can work together and participate. So it's a good thing that we could consider and look into. But I'll let Jean-Jacques.
Yeah, we actually are working. I mean, we have a dialogue, and I think it's a very good source of information about new development, and also to get in touch with other companies that either in the region or even the world. So what we are working with is called CICA, which is a Confederation of International Construction Association. So it's a global one. They have a very, very big footprint in Latin America. So there is a very, powerful association for Latin America, I would say. So, not necessarily the Caribbean. I am not aware of any Caribbean association, but what I know from CICA and this association is that you could be a member directly. So, if you are interested, I could give you, the name of the general director of CICA, which is a very powerful organization. And this organization actually, it's construction. We are talking about construction, not other type of companies. In construction, so they are the ones that are able actually, a lot actually, to support their members. And also, it's obviously for the firms a way to interact between each other and to share the concern, and sometimes, to get together into a bidding process. So it's called CICA, that's the main one. There is one for Latin America called FIC, F-I-I-C, so the Federation Interamericano de Construcción. But I think it's just Latin America. I don't know if there is anything at the Caribbean level. That I know, I don't know. Maybe a new idea on top of having an association in St. Martin.
Some countries in the Caribbean have their own association. What there's aggregators of business opportunities in the region. Some of one project that comes to mind is Project Calls. And those aggregators sometimes have events organized by either multilateral development banks or by themselves, where they foment that integration and collaboration between firms of the region. So that's one place, but definitely, we've just identified a gap that it would be important to fill in St. Martin, and I think we could definitely have a support role in there, and we will look into it.
I think I saw someone inching towards the microphone. Please ask your question.
Well, they say no question is a dumb question, so I'm going to ask instead of going directly to you. I might get more knowledge from the other panelists. But I saw something on the prompter about vendors, premium vendors, etc. I was wondering if it was like you guys looking for local persons to probably source items. Maybe that's within the logistic industry, and or if it's just local persons that already have a business that source those particular items, or it's something completely different. But when I hear vendor, I think sourcing materials and different types of products.
So thank you very much for bringing that question. I forgot to mention, but so these systems that offer, it will be completely free for bidders to participate in tenders, to register and to participate in tenders. But of course, as any business, the companies that have these systems in place find ways to find different streams of revenue, and you can have some premium services available to you from that system, but none of them are required for you to register and to have access to the business opportunities and email notifications. Feel free to go into it, but and see whether it's very nominal cost for premium vendors. I think it's $500 a year to get the benefit of those additional resources. It's more tailored notifications, wider access to the entire Bonfire network instead of just limiting to the agencies you register with. But please rest assured that we cannot implement any measure that in any way, shape, or form limits competition, and that we would not have chosen such a system if it required payment for vendors to register and to participate in tenders. Thank you very much for the question.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for the presentation.
Can you please step a little closer? Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. Better? Yes. So, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Alexandre Choisy, and I represent Choisy Consulting as an IT consulting company. My question is about the key experts. And I wanted to know if, by the time I submit my bid, do those key experts, if I lack in any of them, does it have them to be registered already to the company as partners, or can it be done after in case I win the bid? Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, so usually there's no formal commitment. I mean, there may be agreements, but usually consultants, key experts are available on the market, and you may look for a specific key expert and say, hey, I'm planning on participating in this tender. I need an environmental and social standards specialist. Are you available? Would you be interested in the project? Do you have the qualifications? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. So I'm going to incorporate you. And usually, as part of the bid submission, there's a CVs and also a availability or letter of intent of participation signed by those consultants. And that's all you would need. But you don't have to have a contractual agreement. You don't have to hire that consultant under your firm or anything like that. You can do it if you want to, but you don't have to. So definitely yes. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Another question that came in, and I'm going to inch my way over to the director. So someone in the meantime posted a question that said, since there is no local contractors association, is there a place for the Chamber of Commerce or SHTA in this conversation? So as the former director of the Chamber of Commerce, as the former Minister of Economic Affairs, I think there is no other perfect person to answer this question.
Well, by virtue of the St. Martin Hospitality Trades Association having members, you know, that they speak on behalf of their membership. But I think that it is also an opportunity for the Chamber of Commerce to be able to establish such an organization on the island, specifically in the area. So that is something that we try to collaborate with the Chamber with the very beginning of the trust fund. And we'll still continue to do so. I think the question I mentioned earlier was a very good one for us to look into.
We have exhausted all questions. Our brains are just full of information this evening. Okay, we have one last question that came in online. And it says, a presenter mentioned that the NRPB will end. When will this be? In 2028?
The NRPB, as I mentioned in the beginning, is established by law. It's a temporary organization. It's established for the implementation of the trust fund. The date for the ending of the NRPB will coincide with the end of the trust fund. So, 2028 is the day that we have right now. It also means that the government or the Parliament of St. Martin can decide to establish an organization similar to NRPB for the future, but that is not something that is in discussion at this point.
Thank you. All right. With that, Santiago, I would like to give any closing remarks of your presentations. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, before I give the floor back to the director of NRPB for closing remarks, I just want to highlight, we will put a slide after when the director is speaking and after with QR codes. You have direct access to information of our tenders, information. The World Bank has just revamped their page, and they created a specific page that's called the Suppliers Hub, where you will be able to find a lot of very valuable information on how to participate, how to tenders, how does the bank works, the regulations, and so on and so forth. So please utilize those. Here you see we created QR codes. Also, we created a small document with tips for bidders. So specific tips for bidders at the specific stages of procurement and execution of contract. Some things that may be obvious, some others that are not so obvious. And we also included a step-by-step guide on how to register in Bonfire and how to use Bonfire. And of course, the link to the Procurement Manual is also going to be present there. So really thank everybody for your time. Thank you for taking an evening after work to come and attend us. Mr. Governor, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us and for gracing us of your presence. And World Bank, Toyin, thank you so much for helping us and working together with us. And Jean-Jacques, of course, who made the trip especially to come join us and provide his invaluable experience and comments. So thank you very much. With that, Clarette.
All right, so as we bring tonight's sessions to a close, I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for being here. Your presence, your questions, your feedback and suggestions help shape how we move forward, not just as an organization, but as a community. These sessions only work when people show up, and you have, when they speak up, and you have, and you've done just that. A heartfelt thank you to our presenters this evening, Jean-Jacques, Rena, Santiago, for your time and your insights. A special thank you also to the full procurement team and the NRPB staff who helped to organize and set up this evening's events behind the scenes. Your work made this all possible. Once again, you keep hearing us say register, register, register. So if you registered at the door, you will receive follow-up materials from us. If you haven't registered it yet, please take a quick moment to do so before you leave. We'd love to keep you informed about future sessions. For those of you joining us online, thank you as well. We hope that this was informative for you. In the meantime, don't forget to check out the tenders page for upcoming opportunities. And if you have any questions after tonight, please feel free to reach out to our team. We're always happy and willing to help. Thank you once again for spending your evening with us. Mr. Governor, if you are ready to leave, I would like to ask the crowd to please rise to your feet as we bid His Excellency farewell. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a safe and restful evening. Good night and thank you.